we're going to start to read chapter 3, and it does seem to be short, so if we have enough time, I'll read chapter 4 as well, but if not, we'll just read chapter 3. A runaway boat. The speeding boat, which had struck Nancy's craft, veered sharply away and raced downstream. "Hey, wait!" George shouted angrily at the reckless pilot. "You've damaged our boat! Nancy, go after him! Don't let him get away!" Nancy, however, was busy with another problem. When the crash had come, she had seen Bess lose her balance, strike her head on the side of the boat, and topple into the water. If Bess were unconscious, there was no time to lose. Nancy instantly turned off the motor, located a spot where her friend had gone down, and dived in. Grasping the stunned girl under the shoulders with her left arm, she struck out with the other for the boat. George leaned over and helped pull the unconscious victim aboard. "Is she—" her cousin began in a terrified voice. At this moment, Bess opened her eyes and coughed several times. Nancy thumped her on the back. "I'm all right," Bess said weakly. "Our boat!" She tried to point. For the first time, the others realized that the water was filling the craft at an alarming rate from a small hole in its side. "Quick, George, bail!" shouted Nancy. George picked up the can she had been using before and started to work. Nancy leaped forward, crumpled up a newspaper lying on the bottom of the boat, and stuffed it into the hole. Looking in a tackle box near her, she discovered a burlap sack, which she rolled up and added to the paper. In a moment, the influx of rushing water was stayed. "Good," panted George, sitting down. "Now we can chase that other boat." It was not in sight, however, and Nancy wisely decided it would be useless to try to pursue the speedier craft. She turned her attention to Bess. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Oh, all right, I guess, but I'd like to go home." "We'll go right away," decided Nancy. "I'm a sight myself, and this boat can't stand much more." "I wish we hadn't lost the fellow who ruined it," said George. "If I ever see him," she added angrily. "Would you recognize him?" asked Nancy. George confessed that she would not, and inquired if the other girls would. Bess had not noticed him, but Nancy replied, "I didn't see him very well, but I believe I'd know him if we ever meet again. At any rate, I'm going to keep my eyes open for both him and his boat." The girls dreaded to return to Campbell's Landing with their damaged craft, but the owner was not disagreeable about the matter. "It won't cost more than $10 to repair it," he assured them. "I'll do the work myself." Nancy promised to pay him, and he added, "You'd better hunt for that scoundrel who'll hit you and make him give you the money. He ain't got no right running into folks that way." Discouraged that the trip to Heath Castle had been a failure, Nancy took her friends home, then went to her own house. The following day found her still without a clue to the identity of the unknown boatman. Though she described his blue and white craft to several persons, no one was able to identify it. Then suddenly she thought of someone who might. "Old Me Hardy," she told Hannah Gruen. "I believe I'll hike down to his place on the river and chat with him." Taking Bess along for company, she proceeded toward the river. As the girls approached the docks, they observed a dark-haired, beady-eyed stranger coming up the boardwalk. Instantly, Nancy was struck by his resemblance to the man who had crashed into her boat. She stopped to speak to him, inquiring if he were not the one who had caused the collision. "No, I'm not," the man snapped. "I don't even own a boat." Glaring at the girls, he walked on hurriedly. The unpleasant encounter disheartened Nancy, and she was silent until they reached Me Hardy's little home. Then her spirits revived. The place was very quaint. Once it had been a small, well-appointed yacht. Now it was a beached wreck, weathered by sun and rain. Its only claim to any former glory was the flag, which flew proudly from the after deck. "Anyone home?" Nancy called, cupping her hands. Come in," invited the old sailor in a loud voice. He was sitting inside the cabin with his feet on a built-in table, eating a lunch of baked beans out of a tin can and some tomatoes. Seeing the girls, he got to his feet, greatly pleased to receive their call. "Ye honor me coming here," he said. his blue eyes twinkling. "But I'm going to have to disappoint you. I've nary a clam today. Too lazy to go out and dig 'em, I guess." "Oh, we didn't come to buy clams," Nancy replied, glancing curiously about the inside of the yacht, which she had never seen before. The room was small and cluttered, but very clean. Me Hardy's bunk was neatly made, and on a shelf above it was displayed an amazing array of seashells. "I collect 'em," the sailor explained, following Nancy's gaze. "Some of those shells came from Puget Sound, and some from the South Pacific." Hobbling over to the shelf, he pointed to a curious-looking specimen. "That's called the washboard clam. It's one of the biggest of our river clams." "How interesting," the girls exclaimed. Pleased by their attention, the man showed them the other shells, which were too large to stand on the shelf. One measuring 3 feet across, had come from an island in the Pacific. "My, think what a pearl one might find in a clam that size!" Nancy laughed, then told of her own loss, saying she was glad the pearl was not large. "Me Hardy, what would you say is the largest one ever discovered?" "Well, now that's a poser. The largest pearl I ever heard tell of weighed about 3 ounces. There's probably bigger ones yet to be found." "That's amazing," said Bess. The old sailor showed the girls other treasures from the sea. Huge fluted specimens and tiny delicate shells from the Orient. Amazed at the variety in his collection, Nancy asked Me Hardy if he had obtained the many different kinds by going to the various places where they could be found. "No," the clam digger laughed. "Mr. Heath gave him to me." The name startled Nancy. "Not Walter Heath?" she inquired alertly. "No, Ira Heath, Walt's father," Me Hardy answered. "He gave me the shells when he had his button factory on the inlet." "A button factory near here?" Bess asked in surprise. "That's news to me." "The factory's been closed for years. It was shut down when the supply of fresh water mussels gave out. They use them, to make buttons." Nancy and Bess were learning a great deal, and they wanted to learn more. "What became of Mr. Heath?" Nancy inquired. "Ira was born in England and went back there on a visit," Me Hardy revealed, lighting a corncob pipe. "He died there. His son Walt was left in charge here, and he stayed on at Heath Castle." "His father built the castle?" inquired Bess. Me Hardy nodded, warming to the story. "Yes, Heath Castle was built to look like one of them fancy English places. The gardens were wonderful, a sight to set your eyes ablaze. Stone walls everywhere with flowers and vines and all kinds of trees from everywhere in the world." Nancy was becoming more eager every minute to see the estate. "But for me," went on the clam digger, "the place is too lonesome. No houses close by. The old gent built it about a mile up the river from the button factory. Since Walt died about 5 years ago, no one ever goes near the castle or near the factory on Harper's Inlet either." "Harper's Inlet?" Nancy repeated thoughtfully. "Someone must have been there yesterday." "That's right," agreed Bess. "We saw a motorboat come out of the inlet. It crashed into our boat and threw me into the water." "Queer," commented Me Hardy. "I don't know what business anyone would have at the factory." "Who was the fellow?" "That's what we came to find out," Nancy said. She gave a complete account of the accident. Me Hardy could not identify the man from her description, but he promised to watch for such a person. "I'll keep an eye out for that boat, too," he added thoughtfully. "Can't figure why the fellow would be prowling up the inlet. Fishing's no good there. Maybe I'll run up and have a look." Satisfied that Me Hardy would be able to locate the boat and its mysterious pilot if anyone could, Nancy and Bess thanked him and left his quaint yacht home. "How about going to Heath Castle now?" Nancy suggested to her friend. "Sorry," Bess replied, "but I can't go today. Let's do it tomorrow. Then maybe George can go with us." Nancy agreed, and the girls separated. When she reached home, a surprise awaited her. While she and Mrs. Gruen had been away from the house, 4 rose bushes had been planted in the garden. Examination disclosed that they were the same ones that had been taken, and were only slightly wilted from having been moved twice. Joan must have brought them back, Nancy declared. Oh, I'm so glad, for I'm sure she wouldn't have taken them if that boy Jetty Hooker hadn't urged her to. She was pressing dirt firmly about the bushes when her father drove into the garage. The girl stopped her work at once and ran to greet him. Mr. Drew was a distinguished-looking man, tall and handsome. Hello, Nancy, he smiled fondly. How's the garden? Rather successful today, she laughed. 4 rose bushes that were taken yesterday are home again. I wish all mysteries could be solved as easily. As they went into the house together, Nancy told him about the boat accident, the Fenimore problems, and the mystery of Floriana. Dad, tell me what you can about Ira Heath and his son Walter, she asked. Did you know them? Only by reputation. For years they operated a very successful button factory, then the business went to pieces. I already know that part, Nancy said. What about Heath Castle? After Ira and Walter died, who took charge of the place? Hector Keep, I believe. Nancy's mind flew to the unpleasant customer in the curio dealer's shop. Isn't he a lawyer? she asked. Yes, Mr. Drew agreed soberly, but I'll confess that Keep's brand of law never appealed to me. I consider him a shrewd, calculating man. Is there any reason why he should allow Heath Castle to go to ruin? None that I know of. Do you think Mr. Keep did everything to find Floriana? Nancy asked thoughtfully. So far as I know he did, I can't see any reason why he shouldn't have. Did you know her? I saw her perform many times. I admired her dancing very much, Mr. Drew replied, smiling in reminiscence. Why she should have disappeared at the height of her career has always puzzled me. Apparently she left no clues behind, remarked Nancy. The case was a strange one, her father said. I guess Walter Heath was pretty broken up over it. I've always wondered. You wondered what, Dad? Well, it occurred to me that Heath Castle might provide a key to the mystery. I have no real reason for thinking so. It's merely a hunch I have. And I have a similar one, Nancy cried jubilantly. 2 Drew minds can't be wrong, she laughed. Tomorrow I'll go there and ask those crumbling old walls to give up their secret. All right, we're a little over 12 minutes in. I don't think I'll start the next. I think I'll do a separate video for the next chapter.